Great, thank you. So I feel really lucky in that Stephen, Dean, and Eric set this up very well in that they said, literally, how do we get people involved in some of these activities? And Eric's answer was that we need to provide them something more than just the data, more interesting than just the data. And in a nutshell, that's what we're going to talk about. We're talking about an experiment that we did using social media to engage people in science. So we start with the premise that as scientists, we're really quite good at communicating with ourselves. We have conferences, we have poster sessions, we have peer-reviewed journal articles. But to the point that someone made a moment ago, if you're a layperson and you don't have access to these, you feel very disconnected from the scientific discourse. So most of us, when we're really frank, we admit that we have a little bit of a communication problem with non-scientists. And there are a few reasons for that. It's not only that our conferences are separate, it's that we use lots of terminology and jargon that a layperson might not understand. So this has led to, in my opinion, increased headlines like these, which are really a representation of people outside the scientific community feeling that maybe we're keeping the data a little bit close to our chest, we're not being as transparent, we're not being participatory. And I don't think that's always through intent. I think some of that is because it's something that we don't practice and it hasn't been part of our academic upbringing. So at Genentech, I have a background in genetics and then a degree in neuroscience, but I work in a communications department. And a lot of times what I think is, are people interested in genetics? Are they interested in neuroscience? Do they really want to have this conversation with us? And we planned a little social experiment at TED in Long Beach this year. And we have a little video to show you how it went, and then we'll discuss it with you. Is there sound? Or could we turn up the sound? You can't hear the sound. So the interesting thing about those sounds that you just heard were that they were all created based on people's genetics. So what we did at TED, and we can tell you more outside, is we did cheek swabs, and overnight we turned around 4 SNPs from all of the participants. And we turned their genetics into music as a metaphor to talk to them about things like genetics. They came back the next day, they could listen to the sound of their own genes. And of course, for those of you in genetics, this is somewhat of an oversimplification, but for people who are not interested in, not as educated in these areas, it really gave us an opportunity to have a conversation with them. We had 1,100 people participate in 4 days. That's almost 80% of the people at the TED audience. And mind you, for those of you who've done things like this, 20% or so is actually great participation. So we found that, yes, people were very excited to have conversations about genetics. And what really interested us was building on the potential from TED. So when I say building on the potential, what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're sitting at your computer in a lab and you're thinking, I'd really like to have access to a data set or a population that might be hard to reach, we think social engagement is a great way to do that. So we're thinking of building a platform whereby scientists can actually reach disparate communities by using social media. And this is something that we can't build in a vacuum. So the main purpose of coming here is to actually reach out to you and have conversations about your ideas on this. So we think there are 3 key areas where social engagement platforms could help. One is in communication. It's that translating the science into something that people can really talk and understand, like music. The second is reward. Social has shown us that there's a lot more to reward than money. The third is community. And the way these all fit together, this is just a hypothetical project, is that you might communicate about your project in a way lay people understand, give them some type of a social reward, a song, a badge, something like that. That gets them really excited and interested and ties it back into their community. So they're sharing on Facebook, they're talking about it on Twitter. And what happens there is actually you create this positive feedback loop where instead of you needing to understand, you needing to explain why your science is cool, the community is actually doing it for you. We only spoke to a few, maybe half of those 1,100 people at TED. What really made the project successful was that people got quite excited about it by themselves and were dragging their friends upstairs to do this with us. So we really think the community angle is important. So closing, since I'm out of time, what I'm here to ask of you is that we have a breakout session in the afternoon. We'd like to discuss with any of you who are interested how a platform like this might be useful to you. We've spoken to a couple people, Jimmy, some people at UCSF, and we think we have some initial ideas, but it would be something that would need projects and feedback from all of you. The idea here is to try to think big and think of ways that if you need to reach maybe a small population who lives somewhere quite far away and there are some social communities nearby, we can use social platforms to connect those for you. Thank you.